I was driving home one chilly autumn night, the kind where the darkness seems to swallow the road whole, when I decided to pull over at an abandoned rest stop. I'd been on the highway for hours, and fatigue was setting in. The stretch of road ahead was eerily silent. No passing cars, no hum of civilization, just endless blackness punctuated by the occasional flicker of a broken streetlight. I remember thinking how surreal it was, almost like being in a forgotten part of the world. The rest stop itself was a relic, a concrete lot scattered with broken streetlights and faded warning signs that looked as though they'd been there for decades. As I stepped out of my car to stretch my legs, the cold air prickled my skin. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being observed, though every glance in the dark only revealed more emptiness. I walked slowly along the cracked pavement, my footsteps echoing in the silence. That's when I noticed it. A dented sedan parked crookedly in a shadowed corner of the lot. Its paint was chipped and faded, the kind of car you'd expect to see abandoned for years. I paused, heart thumping a little faster, and moved closer. The area around the car was littered with debris, crumpled wrappers, scattered pieces of broken glass, and most disturbingly, a patch of scuffed-up pavement with a smear of dried blood. The sight made my stomach churn. The blood wasn't fresh, but it was unmistakably there, a grim reminder that something violent had occurred. I circled the car slowly, the beam of my flashlight trembling in my hand. When I reached the driver's side, I noticed that the window was slightly ajar. Inside, on the worn, cracked seat, lay a wallet and a set of keys. I picked up the wallet gingerly, flipping it open to search for any identification. Oddly, there was nothing inside that could identify the owner. Just faded photographs and a few cards that had lost their luster with time. It was as if the wallet had been deliberately emptied, leaving behind only what wasn't needed. I felt a shiver run down my spine. My phone, which I had checked moments before and seen a full charge, was now dead. No signal, no battery, nothing. The silence around me grew heavier, more oppressive, as if the darkness itself was closing in. I looked up from the wallet and keys to see something else that made my pulse race. A shattered rearview mirror, glinting ominously on the ground nearby. It didn't belong to the sedan, I was sure of it. Its design was different, more modern. The mirror's reflective shards caught the stray light and scattered it in a disorienting display, each flash intensifying the dread that had taken root in me. I stood there for a long moment, trying to piece together the fragments of what I'd just witnessed. The abandoned sedan, the blood stain on the pavement, the empty wallet, and that inexplicable mirror. It all painted a picture of violence and neglect, a scene that was as perplexing as it was unsettling. The silence offered no answers, only the hum of my own anxious breathing and the distant rustle of leaves stirred by the wind. A nagging thought crept into my mind. What had happened here? Who had been involved? And why was my phone suddenly dead, in a place that should have been completely off the grid? Every rational explanation seemed to dissolve into the darkness, leaving me with more questions than I could answer. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to get back into my car and speed away from this desolate place. The air smelled faintly of metal and sweat, a lingering scent that made the scene feel all too real. I hurried back to my car, the crunch of gravel underfoot sounding disproportionately loud in the quiet night. As I fumbled with the keys to unlock the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right. Every shadow seemed to shift, every gust of wind whispered secrets. I finally managed to open the door and dove into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life almost immediately, and I took off, my heart pounding in my ears. I drove fast, the rest stop and its mysteries receding into the distance, yet the questions and the images continued to haunt me. The broken mirror, the empty wallet, and the trail of blood were burned into my mind. Even as the highway lights replaced the oppressive darkness, the eerie isolation of that place lingered in my thoughts. I haven't been able to sleep properly since that night. The memory of the abandoned rest stop and the unanswered questions it left behind follow me like shadows. Sometimes, when the night is quiet and the world seems to slow down, I swear I can still smell that faint scent of metal, and sweat, and I wonder if I ever truly escaped what I saw on that desolate stretch of highway. I was driving home after a long, exhausting shift when I first noticed it. A pair of dim, flickering taillights following my car on an otherwise empty stretch of highway. It was one of those nights where the darkness felt impenetrable, and the silence unnerving, the kind where every small sound seems amplified. I slowed down a bit, thinking that perhaps it was just another night traveler like me, making the long journey home. But as I glanced in my rearview mirror, I realized that the car was staying uncomfortably close, its taillights wavering in a pattern that defied any normal explanation. At first, I tried to brush it off as a trick of the light or a mere coincidence. The highway was nearly deserted, and I figured that any other driver would have easily passed me by if they were truly following. Yet, every time I adjusted my speed, even when I accelerated, the mysterious car maintained its position. The taillights, flickering intermittently like faulty bulbs, seemed almost hypnotic, drawing my focus in a way that made my skin crawl. My heart began to pound as a cold sense of dread crept in. I attempted to shake off the unease by focusing on the road ahead, but the sensation of being watched was inescapable. The vehicle's presence felt calculated, almost as if it was deliberately matching every move I made. I found myself glancing into the rearview mirror repeatedly, and each time, the car would vanish for a few seconds, only to reappear just ahead of me. Those brief moments of disappearance were the most disturbing. They left me questioning whether I was imagining things or if there was something far more sinister at work. The highway stretched on for miles, the flickering taillights a constant, unnerving beacon in the darkness. I tried varying my speed, slowing down, then speeding up, but the car was always there, its light dim yet persistent. My hands tightened on the wheel as anxiety built inside me. I began to consider calling someone, maybe even the police, but before I could reach for my phone, the situation escalated in a way I never expected. As I rounded a particularly sharp bend, the mysterious car suddenly swerved around the curve, reappearing on my side in a heart-stopping moment. For an instant, I thought a collision was imminent. I slammed on my brakes and jerked the steering wheel to the left, my pulse hammering in my ears. The car mirrored my movements with an eerie precision that defied rational explanation. It was as if it was not just following me, but anticipating every twist and turn of the road. In that terrifying moment, the darkness around us seemed to close in, amplifying the tension until it was almost unbearable. After what felt like an eternity, the car's taillights flickered one last time, and then, as if dissolving into the night, it sped away into the inky blackness. I was left sitting in my car, trembling and wide-eyed, unsure if I had truly escaped an encounter with a shadowy stalker, or if I had imagined the entire ordeal in a moment of extreme fatigue. The silence of the highway returned, but it was now laden with an oppressive sense of uncertainty and fear. I drove the remaining miles home in a daze, every shadow and glint of light in my rearview mirror sending jolts of anxiety through me. Once I arrived, I locked all the doors and tried to rationalize the experience. Still, sleep eluded me that night as my mind replayed every second of that unnerving drive. The persistent taillights, the vanishing act, and that near collision that left me feeling utterly exposed on an empty road. The next morning, while nursing a hangover of adrenaline and sleeplessness, I decided to call the local police station. I wanted to report what had happened, to see if anyone else had experienced a similar encounter. To my astonishment, the officer on the other end of the line told me that I wasn't the only one. Over the past few nights, there had been several reports from drivers who had encountered an untraceable vehicle on that stretch of highway, each account eerily similar to mine, involving dim, flickering taillights and moments of inexplicable disappearance right before near-miss accidents. Hearing that, a chill ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, had been watching me that night. The idea that a shadowy presence might be tracking my movements, playing with my perception, and orchestrating events with such precision left me questioning every moment of that terrifying drive. Even now, when I pass that stretch of highway, I can't help but glance in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see those ghostly taillights reappear. I still don't have a clear explanation for what happened that night. The encounter has left me with a lingering sense of unease, a reminder that even the most ordinary drive can turn into a nightmare in the blink of an eye. The unanswered questions and the unsettling feeling of being monitored continue to haunt me, a dark secret hidden in the folds of an otherwise routine journey home. It was a humid summer night when I found myself on an unfamiliar stretch of highway, far from the comfort of my usual route. I had taken a detour to avoid heavy traffic, trusting my instincts more than the GPS, which, to my dismay, had suddenly gone silent. The road ahead was nothing more than a ribbon of darkness, broken only by the occasional flicker of malfunctioning streetlights that cast eerie, distorted shadows across the pavement. As I drove slowly, the oppressive silence of the night was interrupted only by the low hum of my engine and the sound of rain tapping intermittently on my windshield. That's when I first noticed a car in my peripheral vision. Its headlights were dim and its presence almost ghostly, appearing briefly before vanishing when I turned my head to look directly at it. I couldn't tell if it was following me intentionally or merely a figment of my tired imagination. Regardless, a prickling sensation of unease began to gnaw at my resolve. I pressed a little harder on the accelerator, thinking that if I put more distance between us, the mysterious vehicle might disappear altogether. But with every mile I added, the feeling grew stronger. Every time I glanced in my rearview mirror, the car reappeared for just a moment, as if mirroring my movements before slipping back into the inky void of the night. My hands gripped the steering wheel a bit tighter, and my pulse quickened. I tried to convince myself that it was just another driver lost on these deserted roads, but the pattern was too deliberate, too calculated. After what felt like an eternity of this unnerving pursuit, I noticed something even more unsettling. Approaching a deserted intersection, I saw scattered debris on the side of the road. There, under a flickering streetlight, lay a blood-stained jacket and a stray cell phone, abandoned on the cracked asphalt. My stomach churned at the sight. The intersection itself looked desolate, the pavement marred by deep tire tracks that cut across it like scars, and an ominous smear of red that made it clear something terrible had happened here. Every instinct urged me to turn back, to escape this unsettling scene and the unknown danger it signified. Yet the fear of becoming completely lost on this forsaken road held me in place. I continued driving, my eyes darting nervously between the road ahead and the rearview mirror, where that elusive car still lurked, maintaining its unnerving distance. The mixture of isolation, dread, and an unshakable feeling of being watched made the atmosphere almost unbearable. Desperate for answers and reassurance, I slowed to a crawl at a rundown service area that barely resembled a rest stop. The place was dilapidated, with a single flickering payphone mounted on a wall stained by years of neglect. With trembling hands, I pulled over and made my way to the payphone. The static-filled line offered little comfort, but I managed to get through to the local police. The officer on the other end of the line listened patiently as I recounted my experience. The vanishing car, the deserted intersection, the discarded jacket, and the smeared blood. His voice grew somber as he informed me that there had been a violent incident at that very intersection several weeks ago. The details were sketchy, but the description of the scene he provided matched exactly what I had witnessed. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine, realizing that I had driven through the remnants of a tragedy that I could barely comprehend. Eventually, I ended the call and sat in silence, the weight of what I had learned settling heavily around me. Resumed my drive with a lingering sense of vulnerability and dread, the mysterious car nowhere in sight. Even now, when I recall that night, the image of that blood-stained crossroad and the echo of those vanishing headlights continue to haunt me, a chilling reminder that on certain nights the roads conceal far more than just empty stretches of highway.